All right, so we've talked about Will. Tell us a little bit about Wilda.
Unfortunately, I didn't know much about Wilda. What I do know about her, she had a pretty strict personality, and she didn't take crap from anybody. And I had a
She had a Yankee husband.
I had a pretty good relationship with her. But do I continue on other members of the family? Just sis right now.
Just sis right now.
Just sis right now. Well, I'm repeating myself, but I guess I didn't know that much about sis, and I knew she was a stern person, and she was determined to be successful from a business standpoint and from a family standpoint, and I admire her for that.
How about you, JD? You remember anything about sis?
She worked in Baton Rouge at Fidelity Bank, as I recall. And like I said, she married a Yankee. And he was a good, nice guy.
Yes, he was. So they met at the bank, right? Where she worked?
I don't know.
In Baton Rouge.
I don't know.
You know what? Somebody asked me yesterday, how did Sis and Frank meet? Did your mother work in Texas or live in Texas?
They met in Baton Rouge.
In Baton Rouge?
At the bank.
Okay.
But then she ended up in Texas.
Yes. Army.
Yeah.
My dad was in the Army.
Oh, not until they got married?
Right. Well, I'm not sure.
And of course, you were born in Wichita Falls.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the first grandchild. So
Right.
I remember when you got home.
You do?
You were just a little bitty thing. How old were you when you moved back to, or when you moved?
I'm old enough to remember getting stuck on that dirt road to the greenhouse. We got stuck on that road. It was all muddy and it rained a lot. So I was old enough to remember that. I was probably about 3 maybe.
Yeah. Were you old enough to say, whose idea was this?
No, but it scared me that the car was stuck.
Yeah.
I don't remember how we got
I
home.
remember the day y'all got home. I remember the day.
Really?
Yeah. Y'all had Lizzie. Remember that old car, that old Ford? Your dad called it Lizzie.
So did they live in Opelousas? Did they live in Opelousas for a
They lived
while?
with us for a while.
Oh.
And then they got an apartment in Opelousas. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And of course, they lived in Lafayette while Frank was going to school.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
That village.
That village.
Yeah.
Frank worked for the insurance.
Yeah, Frank worked for New York Life.
Right.
New York Life, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I got policies right now I bought from him.
But Frank Dunlap was a nice guy.
For a Yankee.
Huh?
For a Yankee.
Yeah, you do
For
have
a
to
Yankee.
qualify that.
In London, Ohio. That's where he
Yes.
was born and raised.
Yes.
And I remember his dad too. They called him
Ole.
Ole. Yeah, yeah. Ole and I used to go on the side and talk.
No way. Well, yeah, because he lived with them too.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember
Yeah.
that.
Ole used to live with your mom.
Yes, he
and dad.
did.
And every time when they'd bring him over, hey, he and I were tight. We'd talk. He said, Nolan, you still drinking? I said, I'm only 15 years old. No. Yeah. Anyway, as I've said before, your mom was my nanny, and I think we got along good. In fact, she insisted we get along good. Man, she taught me a lot of my manners. Yeah, she did. Or else. No, I'm just kidding. But that summer I stayed with you, took care of you, was a very memorable occasion. when it was time for me to go home to pursue my education, they bought me all my school clothes. Let's see, 2 pairs of khakis. No.
No, that's all there was, is 2 pair of pants and 3 shirts.
When we were in school, we wore 2 suits of clothes a week. First, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we wore, and then Mama would let us change Friday, up to Thursday, Friday. But we were very careful that when we got home from school every day, that we immediately dressed into our old overalls to go milk the cows and feed the slop dogs and do everything. But Mom insisted that we preserve the cleanliness of our school clothes. Of course, it happened as such. J.D. wore them one year, and the following year I wore them, and the following year he wore them. And, I remember a lot of times going to school with no shoes on. Yeah, and it was chilly, a little chilly. I remember when we lived at the old store, preparing my dad's old store. We lived in the back of the old store. I couldn't find J.D.'s shoes one day, and I had to go to school bare feet. And when I got home from school the next day, he had already had a new pair of shoes. But mine had worn out, and he was wearing them. And when I got home from school, I found my shoes. He had hid them somewhere in the wood pile. Wouldn't let me wear them. But anyway, I did find my shoes. But right after that, J.D. got a new pair of shoes, and I got his old shoes again. Then I handed them down to Louis. And I'm not kidding with that.
We're talking about Wilder.
Yes.
We're talking about yourself. We're talking about Wilder.
Yeah, but I just put that in.
All right, next one on the list, Velma. How about Velma? What do you remember about her?
Velma,
I'm first. Velma was a very kind, sweet, caring lady.
next.
You got that? And that's what I remember of Velma. And she and Sis were quite different from a personality standpoint. And Velma helped us as much as she could. She worked in Opelousas, and that caused us to have quite a bit of contact. And anytime she could help us with something, she did. And her husband was a hell of a nice guy too. That's it.
Thank you.
I remember Val worked at Town's Trading Post in Opelousas. She was the secretary, I think. And we used to walk into Opelousas from our suburban domicile. And we always went to the show on a Saturday afternoon. If we were lucky.
If we had a dime.
If we had 11 cents to get in. And we'd always go by Val's place of employment, and we'd look in, and if she happened to see us, she'd come out and give us each a dime. Huh? Remember that? And she says, "Now, I'm working." But we always went to the Rex Theater, Delta Theater. It cost 14 cents to get in at Delta and 9 cents to get in at Rex. So we always went to Rex. But we watched the cowboy movies mostly. And in those days, you didn't wait till the movie was over to go in. You could have gone in the middle of a cowboy movie because, hey, we'd see the end, then we'd go back and see the beginning. You remember that? Yeah. But that's the way it was. But Val, like Louis says, very nice person, very respectful of us. Just like your mom, we respected our sisters. And but they were overshadowed by 7 boys. but they held their own. I wouldn't want it to, either one of them would get mad at me. But I think all 9 of us were an awesome group. We were there, we respected each other, we had love for each other, and I mean, it just happened. That's the way we were raised, that's the way Mom and Dad taught us, and we respected their advice. That's the way it had to be, and we loved it.
What do you remember about Velma? JD?
A very sweet person. Your mother was a very sweet person, but she could be a little bit more demanding, as you recall, I
As
think.
I recall.
And you're proud of it. I mean, look what happened to you, the person you are.
Yeah, I was speaking, if you don't mind. Would you mind if I speak?
I'll try and keep him under control.
That's all right. I don't want him to have a headache. If he has to quit talking, he'll probably have a headache.
As usual, I get no respect.
So you remember anything particular about Velma?
Yeah, I actually spent time over there in the summer, you know, when we were out of school, and she was in Port Arthur. She moved to Port Arthur when she was quite young when she and Frank got married. So, oh, you wait for
Very
me to
good.
say something?
Mhm. You remember anything else you want to say? Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Oh, she recognized the fact that I was probably one of the better ones in the brothers.
One thing I remember
And
is
my younger brother,
Which one? Yes.
Which one?
my younger one, the one
Which
right-
one? Nolan?
Well, yeah, he was right before me.
but I can remember
Right after.
one of our enjoyments was to visit Frank and Velma in Port Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
We'd go for the weekend, and that was
Yeah.
very enjoyable.
In fact, I can remember when we crossed the border getting into Texas, we would do, we're in Texas. I remember Val and Frank first address in Port Arthur, Texas, 141 East 14th Street. And on another note, Diane, Vicky, and Jody, she had 3 beautiful kids. And thank God, I still keep in touch with them as I keep in touch with you. And they did a great job, as your parents did with you, raising them. And anything that ever happens there, I know about it. Because, you know, I keep in touch with them. Jody, by the way, had a hip surgery, which he fell down and had to have it redone. And now he's having trouble with his back. His back's giving him trouble. And, but he keeps going.
All right, we're going to move on to Coke. How did he get the name Coke?
I wish I knew.
He was Alvin, his given name was Alvin, but who gave him the name Coke?
I don't know. He would. That's all I ever called him. Everybody called him Coke.
Right.
Nobody called him Al.
I didn't know his real name until I was 20.
What
But
can you tell me about him?
I would suspect that one of the Polang boys gave him that name of Coke.
Oh, really?
O'Neill Polang and Champ and who was the other one?
Carl,
Yeah,
Hazel.
but Dad used to work my dad, your grandpa, was the overseer for the Polang plantation, and they used to grow rice and everything. And Coke used to associate a lot with those three Polang boys, men. One of whom went to school with Willie at LSU and was also a doctor, O'Neill Polang. In fact, one day Will called me, and he said, "Guess who I talked to today?" I said, "I don't know." O'Neill Polang. He was a doctor at Hotel Du, I think, in New Orleans. I think it was Hotel Du. And I said, "Will, did you get his phone number?" He said, "No, I was going to call him." Because he had a memory. And Champ was the youngest. You remember Champ?
No, not really.
Wasn't there three of them?
Yeah, Champ and O'Neill and Carl.
Carl was the old, no, O'Neill was the oldest.
Yeah.
O'Neill was the oldest. But anyway, O'Neill grew up to be a doctor. Will told me that O'Neill used to do chemistry problems, and he'd start with the answer and go backwards on it.
Sounds like Raymond.
I don't even know if he knew the answer. But he'd work a chemistry problem backwards. And he grew up to be a doctor.
So do y'all remember when Coke went into the Navy?
Yes, he was 17 years old. Daddy had to sign for him to get into the Navy.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was the only one of us children to quit school. He dropped out of high school
To go into the Navy.
and to join. Shut up. to join the Navy, and he also learned how to party while he was in the Navy, and he was a pretty good partier. So when he finished that tour of duty, he came back to Opelousas and re-enlisted or went back to school and got his high school diploma, and then went back in the Navy for another tour of duty. That's what I remember. And of course he married Birdie. He met Birdie in South Carolina and married her, and they ended up with 2 children.
Coke was stationed in Manila towards the end of World War II. And Philippine Islands. And we had a picture of Coke with a native of the Philippine Islands. And she had shorter hair than he did. Pretty girl. Do you remember that picture?
Yeah.
But like he said, Coke came home, finished his education, and went back in the Navy. And he was in the Navy for what, about 11 years all told?
I guess I don't know for sure. He put two tours of duty.
Then toward the end of his enlistment, he was stationed in South Carolina and met Birdie. And of course, they got married. They got married. When Coke got out of the Navy, they moved to Opelousas. But I don't think Birdie liked Opelousas, so they moved to Mount Pleasant. And Coke went to work for the naval shipyards. He operated a crane. I can remember that. He operated a crane, and that's where he retired. Yeah. And we visited Coke several times, Mom, Dad, and me, and you. I remember when I got out of service, my first automobile, let me digress a bit. My first automobile was a 1954 Dodge red with a red Ram engine. And I parked it in Coke's yard. You know, a Ram is a goat. And Coke's neighbor said, "Hey, Coke, Al," call him Al. "Al, do you need a rope to tie down that goat in your yard?" But I got a picture of Dad sitting in Coke's yard. He had gone to Coke to build a garage for him. and he had, I think he had a can of Regal beer in his hand or something. And he was relaxing after he finished building that garage and go in front yard. I still got that picture.
JD, you remember anything about Coke?
About Coke?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he left home when he was quite young. Goes with visitor. His daughter, we got, what's her name?
Wanda?
Wanda.
Wanda?
Wanda,
She
Joey.
got her to Carnopolis this in summertime to coach the kids at Belmont,
Oh.
basketball.
I remember, you know, Coke, when Coke was in his older years, he was very quiet. But that's not the way he was when he was young. Boy, hey, he was wild, wasn't he? Little Coke.
I learned some of my partying from Coke.
Coke, hey, Coke lived hard, but he lived good. And then he went in the Navy, and I don't know if that quietened him down or what. But after he got out of the Navy, he was settled down. Now maybe Birdie
He got married. Yeah.
Huh?
He got married.
Yeah.
That's
That's
what
what I'm
bothered
saying.
him.
Hey Al, shut it down, boy. But now Coke had a great wife, Birdie. Of course, Birdie's got her name from being Sarah Lou Bird. Everybody called her Birdie. I didn't know her name till I was 20 years old. But she grew up, like I said, she lived in Opelousas for a short while. And then I think she told Coke that, hey Al, it's about time to go back home. And well, apparently, Coke worked for the telephone company in Opelousas for a very short while. And I guess they were there about a year or so. And they went back to
They both
Mount
had
Pleasant.
good jobs there, Nolan.
Huh?
They both had good jobs there.
Yeah,
Opelousas wasn't quite,
yeah.
you know.
And then Birdie had a brother that we called Brother. You remember him? Mm-hmm. Louis and I visited Coke and Birdie when I got back from the service. And we were sitting out in the yard and Brother got there and they said, let's go somewhere. I said, I ain't going anywhere. So him and Brother went out and stayed out all night, I believe.
No, we got home about 3 a.m.
3, yeah, I remember. We haven't seen Brother since then, I think. I don't know if he's still living. Anyway.
All right. What about Hubert?
Oh, let me
What are
start.
what are your fondest memories of Hubert?
The most behaved child in the Briley family. Very well behaved. He learned how to cook. He learned how to do carpentry work. Hubert was so immaculate. The way he learned things, the way he went about doing things, the way he lived. Here I go again. But Hubert, just to give you an example of the kind of person Hubert is, or was, I'm sorry, I was. He used to walk every morning and he outlined his path, did some studying, got on a slide rule, he was an engineer, got on a slide rule, and determined how many steps he made each morning while he was walking. And he determined that at a certain point in his lifetime, he made a determination that he'd walk from the East Coast to the West Coast and halfway back again. The number of steps. He'd go on a trip and calculate the number of turns his tires made during the trip. I I asked him one day, I said, Hubert, we going to JD's house after they moved to Lafayette. And I said, would you draw me a map, because they were living here in Lafayette, as to how to get to JD's house? He made me a map that showed every Burger King along the way. McDonald's, and he'd calculate the distance from one turn to the 1.25 miles, or 3.12 miles. Hey, before I knew it, I was on JD's garage, in JD's garage. But the only thing he did on that map, he had one Burger King spelled Booger King. B-U-G-E-R.
How about, do you remember the time that he was laid up with his leg?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he had a rough time.
Oh, yes. In fact, when Daddy had to take him to Charity Hospital ever so often, he had to borrow Titon's little Ford. And you know a little Ford. I used to have to travel all the way to New Orleans with Hubert's cast on my leg. And I did that, 2 or 3 times. And I remember Hubert laying in that cot in the living room at the greenhouse. You remember that? And I remember one night, you remember those little deals they had over the fireplace, the little doors? He thought he saw Tonvi coming out of one of them. I remember that. Tonvi. He said, what's Tonvi doing up there? You remember that?
Yeah.
So what was the diagnosis for his leg?
It's a crack bone.
Didn't that result out of a blow to his leg?
Yes.
Yes. At one time, he had that open wound, and a little piece of bone came out of it. I remember that. A little jagged piece of bone. And he was like that for what? He was laid up like that for 18 months?
At least.
Yeah. But that didn't stop him.
What I remember about Hubert was his determination to get an education.
Oh.
And he was bound and determined to get an education. But of course, what went with that, given our finances, was coming up with the finances to pursue his education. And he went to LSU, and to work his way through school, he worked in the restaurant industry.
Bubba and Paul, if I may.
Yeah.
Bubba and Paul.
And he dedicated himself to sticking with it and graduating and getting an engineering degree.
Forestry, I'm sorry,
Forestry from LSU. But he not only was dedicated or involved in dedicated in getting himself educated, he was very instrumental in helping us decide to go to school and to get educated, pursue degrees. So that's what I remember most of it. A very, very dedicated and caring person. That's about it.
Thank you.
Well, when I got out of service, I didn't know whether to go up or down. But I did get a job in Lafayette as a doodle bugger. That's gas and oil exploration. And I had an apartment. No, I commuted most of the time, but occasionally I'd stay with Hubert and Cuz at their apartment. And Hubert would always make me a gumbo. That boy could cook. But I'd do that. I did that for about a year, and then
1, 2, 3.
Take me back when times were hard, but we didn't know it. If we ate, we had to grow it. Take me back when all we could afford was laughter and 2 mules instead of a tractor. Take me back